Hello and welcome to Plato's Cave, coming to you from Australia, the land down under, for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio. Really easy to remember. I know they no longer new domains, but I remember when they came in and I loved them then and I still do love the new domains. .radio, how cool is that? Anywho, this is Listener Funded Radio, so if you can spare a penny or two, please do so. Any currency is good, by the way. Crypto, or gold, silver, diamonds, maybe even chickens and eggs. They're expensive, I hear, these days. So, but maybe you can't, because things are tough all over. I get it. I get it. I do. Tell people about the station. It helps. Tell people, subscribe to Dave and my shows. Plato's Cave, Shiny Side Out. Subscribe to the other shows. When you do see us in the wild, like us, subscribe, share, comment. All of that helps. The more you like, the more our shows are shared. That's how the algorithm works. And good morning to the chat room. And who is this? That's a Comet. You wrote a novel. That's a lot there. I haven't. So good. Comet there. Omega Logos. Letty Maxed. What else do we have? I think. Oh yeah, here we go. Lavender Streams. Lavender Streams. Harmony 369. Harmony, not like my singing, that's for sure. Alrighty, conduct detrimental. Enceleron ro azagon lacroix. That's pretty cool. Enceleron ro azagon lacroix. Hey, love it. Anywho, that's who's in the chat room, so thank you for being there. All in one. If you're listening to this canned, so on any platform out there, whatever it be, YouTube, Rumble, I think we're on Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. No, that's not going to happen. Or anywhere else for the matter. Or TikTok. We're doing really well on TikTok, so thanks for that. Come and try the live shows. They're pretty fun. And if you go into the chat, I will make an effort to monitor it. So, no, you're not just ranting in a semi-hallucinated state. Oh, that's funny. But I will make the effort of reading it when I get a second away from talking, because today I'm solo. Dave is not 100%, so it's just my vocal stylings for an hour. If you don't like it, stay around anyway. That's right. Now, you can listen, as I said, on any platform, any app. There's so much out there these days. It's insane, right? But if you're at home, you can listen to us from the comfort of your couch on a Grace tabletop digital radio. That's right, you can do that. Now, another great thing about the station is that the archives are free. So you can go in there and listen to old content or antique, well-aged content. No, you got to get the dusty one. The dusty one is the good one. That's right. It's true. Every day of the week. Now, before I start broadcasting at you in anger, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which I broadcast. And for me here, of course, in what was today very sunny Pemulwuy, it's the Dirac people. And I would like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and future. I will also endeavor not to hit my desk, as my colleague Dave reminds me, on an ongoing basis, because that's what it sounds like. And nobody likes that. So I will do my utmost not to bang my desk. But today it'll be difficult. I'll tell you what. I want to make a few corrections, and I want to say a few things, because I got some comments back, and I love comments. Any good, bad, indifferent, doesn't really matter. Comments is a comment, and I love to understand how people feel about the things we share, our thoughts, our analyses, and how it impacts people or not. That's also good, right? And I got some really, really good long comments, specifically around the Charlie Kirk assassination and the shooter and the gun and so forth. So I made it my mission, because I can shoot. I have shot. Maybe haven't shot in a while. No, that's true. But I've shot rifles and pistols and revolvers. And I do know how they function. Okay. But it has been a while since I've been shooting, right? So maybe I overstated the fact that it was a hard shot. Again, 300 meters, I think that's a pretty good shot if you can make it, right? I mean, if you just walk off the road, into a gun shop, buy a gun, never held a gun before, chances are you're not going to hit anything at that distance. But that's okay. So I made it my mission to listen to a few podcasts of verified veterans, Marines, others as well, and not just Marine Corps snipers, but there were a couple of others. The Army was there, and there was a few special forces snipers that had something to say, and they mentioned a few things which actually had escaped me. Right now, could Charlie Kirk have been assassinated by the person they said did it? The answer is yes. Yes, absolutely, he could have. Okay. Now, but there are a few things, and this again comes from people who look at this with an even keener eye than I, double Dutch, because Tyler Robinson, right, he had hunting experience, he actually knew how to shoot and all that, that's all goodness. But the thing is this, the rifle he used, which was a Mauser, and it's a variant of a rifle that's been in service for decades with various armies, including the American military. Apparently, I've been educated. It's not a breakdown rifle, or it's not a rifle that breaks down quickly. It's not something that you can. This is what you're doing. Right? This came from a number of different gun experts and veterans. Okay, right. So why is this important? Well, okay, so he's got the gun on top. When they show footage of him beforehand, it doesn't look like he has the gun on him. Right? It might be disassembled in his backpack. Okay, let's say this. So he gets up to the roof, he assembles it, he takes a shot, right? And then he takes the time, and apparently it does take a little while to do it, even if you're an expert. He disassembles it, and he puts it in his backpack, right? And then he jumps off the roof, okay? And again, let's say the gun is in the backpack, for argument's sake. And then he runs into the woods. Okay, so far so good. And then he stops. He takes the gun out of the bag, reassembles it, which also takes a little while, and then throws it into the bushes. And none of the experts whose podcasts I found, and this is across the spectrum, red, blue, and different, said that any of this made any lick of sense. It made no sense to disassemble the gun, again, which takes a while, jump off the roof, run into the woods, reassemble the gun, and then run and drive off home or whatever, right? It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. And this is just one of the things that doesn't sit right with these guys, right? Another thing which is interesting, and now, because there's more information coming out now, is that his father turned him in. Well, his father called a law enforcement friend, who then turned him in, knowing full well that the death penalty, capital punishment, is still alive and well in Utah. Now, Utah is usually lethal injection, but you can petition for a firing squad. I was told. That's interesting. Okay, now he's also not cooperating. He's not saying anything. He's not helping the police in any which way, right? Now you can make of that what you will. Interestingly enough, some people have also said, his motivation was that his roommate, who was apparently transgender, is also in a relationship with him. Now, I've seen no corroborating evidence for any of this, but it's interesting how the certain people in your country and in the US are trying to push it to the left, right? To push it to make the shooter definitely a crazy left terrorist something. Okay. It would have taken reconnaissance as well, though, and this is coming from a number of different snipers. You don't just, go up on a roof that day for the first time and take your shot. You go up to the roof, you canvass the area, you get familiar with the grounds, and that will guarantee, greater success than just, turning up on the day and picking a roof. So I think that's not what happened at all. So he must have reconnoitered the area, and which is interesting because there should have been someone. There should have been someone that noticed him, or we should be able to find some kind of security footage of him actually carrying out reconnaissance in the area. Okay, I agree. I agree, Comet. It is not that hard a shot, but again, I come to the one thing which is different here, right? It's killing a human being. That's the difference, right? If you're taking a shot at a deer or a rabbit or whatever, even a target, it's a very different animal to shooting a human being. Very different. And as far as I know, he has never killed anyone. He has never ever shot, as far as we know, I guess at this point, shot a human being, which is again in and of itself a big thing. Now I agree as well. So Comment also says you have no option but to turn in a felon if you're aware of it, or you're becoming an accessory. That's correct. You're becoming an accessory after the fact, and that's bad, obviously, right? But this is your son, right? Now, I'm not sure that I would turn my child in, irrespective of what they've done. And I have 3 children. I don't think I would turn them in. All right? I wouldn't. If anything, I might take the blame for it. Okay? I wouldn't let my child hang out to dry, no matter how misguided or horrible the action they've taken. But that's just me. Again, that's me. Maybe I'm that guy. I don't know. So that didn't make any sense, though, really. But it also doesn't make any sense, in my mind at least, that he would confess immediately to his father what he had done. I mean, you don't carry out this kind of thing, get away with it as he did, and then all of a sudden feel the guilt and confess. And apparently he was joking with his friends on some kind of social media app. I don't know what they were using. About when the picture came out and his friend said, "Hey, that looks a lot like you." And he said, "Yeah, someone is trying to frame me for this," apparently is what he said. Now, let's be very clear. Do I think he's the shooter? At this point, no, I do not. I do not think that he is the shooter. Okay? Or not the only shooter. There's a whole bunch of stuff that went around Charlie Kirk as well. The person with the white baseball cap, seemingly signaling. There's another person signaling as well, maybe. And some people say, that those were security details of Charlie Kirk's. I don't know. Suffice it to say, this is big. This is really, really big. And I come back to my original point, which I will not move from, and that is who benefits the most of this. Who benefits the most? The left, if you want to call it that, there's no benefit for them at all. This is probably the worst thing that could have happened to them. This will galvanize the MAGA movement. This will paint the Democrats, such as they are, as crazy terrorist shooter people. It will, especially because Charlie Kirk himself was completely non-violent. Like he never was physically violent at all. He was a very cerebral person. Okay, you might not agree with him, and I didn't. On a number of things, the other things I did agree with him on. But you can't call him a violent person, right? In fact, he's probably more pro-life than many other people. And I want to mention a couple of things here which are really important to understand what I mean by that. There was a girl that came up in a university debate or something, I can't remember, somewhere in the States. It was a little while ago. And she goes, genocide is, are you calling abortion genocide? And he goes, yes. And that deflated her a bit. And he goes, absolutely, it's genocide. It's 6 million Jews and several million other people were killed in genocide, the Holocaust in Nazi Germany, right? Gays and gypsies and communists as well. But apparently, and I don't know the number, but he quoted a number of 45 million babies have been aborted in the States. I don't know what the time frame is, but obviously 45 million is bigger than 6 or 8 or 10 million, right? I mean, there's no argument there. So he was consequential pro-life, right? And even when the question was asked, what if a 10-year-old girl were attacked and she carried the child of the perpetrator, what would you do? If this was your daughter? And he goes, well, I actually do have a daughter. And he said, I would absolutely let the baby be born. I would absolutely let the baby be born. I don't think you'll find a more pro-life guy than Charlie Kirk anywhere, right? So that was my point here. Now, what I also learned over the course of the last few days, I knew that Charlie Kirk had been critical of Donald Trump. I knew that. He didn't like that America participated more or less in the Iran bombing, or at least gave tacit approval, as it were. And he didn't like what was happening with the Epstein files. Okay, he didn't like that. And he didn't like it to such an extent that there were massive undercurrents in MAGA, which agreed with him, and which took heart from his statements, and which ran directly counter to what Trump wanted to achieve. So those two things, those two dissensions, really, I think, cut into Trump, because Trump again can't abide dissent. Full stop. He cannot. And fair enough too. Well, that's who he is, right? And if you know that, then good. And that's why that's why his cabinet meetings, when he sits around on this big oval table and they all tell him how great he is and what a wonderful job he has done. That's what you have to do if you want to stay in the administration. If you want to stay in your position, okay. If you want to have his continued support, even beyond this administration, that's what you have to do. You have to kowtow, and you have to be the biggest sycophant in the room. And I think it's a competition between these people in the room. Who's the biggest sycophant? Say, I've honestly never seen anything like it. And I've been to board meetings. Okay? No worries, Comet. Enjoy the store. Comet is just going to the store. See, if you're in the chat, I could talk to you. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, let's play the sycophant go around. It's just, again, I find it and like I said, I've been part of many boardroom meetings, and I've seen C-level guys in action, and this takes the cake. It really does. It really does. But that's where we are now. What I learned though over the last few days is something I didn't know, because I hadn't seen that particular interview, and I want to tell you who that was. If I still have it open, I hope I do. I do. Do I? Maybe not. It'd be a shame if I didn't have it. Oh, hang on. No, I don't have it open anymore. Oh man, that's a kick in the teeth. It was Charlie Kirk, and he was being interviewed in a podcast scenario. It's like, you've seen the podcasts before. These are well known. I can't think of who they are. I do apologize. I should have kept that window open. This is what happens. Anyway, what he said was this, and I thought to myself, oh wow, I had no idea he said that. This is what he said. He looked at the October attacks in Israel, and he said, I have been to Israel. Israel is not that big. It's like New Jersey, right? And the entire country is a fortress, he said. And you can't go 10 meters without coming across someone who's got an automatic assault rifle, a soldier, IDF soldier, right? The whole country, he says, is IDF. He said it's inconceivable that the incursions, the Hamas incursions in October happened the way they did. Inconceivable. There's nowhere in Israel that you can't get to within like an hour or half an hour or whatever, depending on the speed of the transport. Okay? It's impossible. It's such a small country that the speed with which you move anywhere is phenomenal, right? You can get anywhere really, really quick. And that this went on for 45 minutes, in his mind, was completely unbelievable. And he said, best case scenario, they let it happen. The Israeli government let it happen. That's what Charlie Kirk said. Charlie Kirk said that, and he was a ardent supporter of Israel. Doesn't mean you have to be an ardent supporter of Netanyahu. Doesn't mean you have to be an ardent supporter of the Likud party or the right wingers in Netanyahu's government. Doesn't mean that. Okay, we have to understand the difference between these things. Okay, you're not an anti-Semite when you criticize Israel or a specific administration's policy in Israel, like the Netanyahu administration at this point. Okay, you criticize Netanyahu, it does not mean you hate Jews. It just means you disagree with Netanyahu. You might even dislike Netanyahu. You might even hate Netanyahu. It doesn't mean you hate Jews, right? And I think that's what he had come to. He said, he kept saying it. He kept saying it wasn't us. And but he also said what's happening in Gaza, and he was trying to say it as delicately as he could, but in the end he had to say it. He said it's ethnic cleansing. That's the mandate. That's the mandate they feel they have. That it's ethnic cleansing is being conducted in Gaza. He said that, right? So these are pretty big statements coming from someone like Charlie Kirk, right? No matter what the context is, whether or not he agreed with those actions or not. So I think he felt there was justification for the takeover of Gaza. I think he felt that. But he had absolutely no sympathy with his assertion that it may have been allowed to happen as a best case scenario. Because it couldn't have gone on that long, he said, if unless somebody had a stand down order. He actually said that, unless there was a stand down order. Now this brought to mind, of course, 9/11, right? And we just we just commemorated the 9/11 anniversary just 5 days ago. And the same thing applies, right? This has happened so much now. And I know it's hard for people to believe, to process that anybody would do that, especially anybody in government, someone that you think you should be able to trust, someone that you think should have your best interest at heart, right? Now, let me put it this way. This is a utilitarian question. And I know you've heard this before, but this is the mindset. A comet is hurtling towards the Earth. Will destroy all life. All life. Right? A complete wipeout. Extinction level event. The only way to stop that comet, for whatever reason, whatever metaphysical reason, it doesn't matter, it's nonsense. It's just a thought experiment. You have to kill an innocent infant. That's what you have to do. You have to kill an innocent infant. And the comet will stop. Would you do it? The human race will continue and be saved, but this infant, you have to kill him or her. You have to kill the infant. It's up to you. It's your call. What would you do? Like a purely utilitarian argument would say, well, one life against 8 billion, that's not really a question, is it? Of course you would say. But then all these other things that come into it as well, your ethics, your upbringing, your morality. Now you have to understand that people in power have none of that. They say they do. But especially if you've been born into privilege and power and money, you view the world through a very different lens. They do not have the ethical and moral and religious and philosophical constraints that most of us have as normal human beings. They don't. And that's how they can send people, their own people, into harm's way. That's how they can justify bombing other countries, killing tens of thousands of people. Okay? Netanyahu has got no qualms at all bombing Gaza the way he does. Because in his mind, he's justified. Right? 1,500 Jews were killed, and now I killed 60,000 Palestinians. In fact, I'll kill all the Palestinians if I have to. You see? And he wouldn't even care if his own people were killed to achieve an end. And this is where we come into false flag operations like 9/11, like the burning of the Reichstag, Lusitania. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And people in power have always done this. They did something horrible, and then they blamed someone else, and that someone else, is then dealt with, but it feeds an agenda. The agenda is whatever it is. Okay? And if you're at 9/11, you know what the agenda is. Port Arthur shooting also has been coming up a lot in the news recently. People looking again at Port Arthur. Now, did you know that Martin Bryan had a functioning IQ of 66? 66. 66 is not very high. He never confessed. He never confessed that he did it until, allegedly, but until he was tortured and told he would never see his mom again. IQ of 66 gives you the intellectual capacity of a 10 or 12-year-old. If you tell a 10 or 12-year-old that you will never see your mom again, what do you think would happen? I mean, they're terrified already. Okay? And he confessed, which is why there was no trial. Just apropos. Martin Bryan never saw a trial. People that knew him or back then, their statements were, no, we didn't see him. We saw the shooter, but that wasn't Martin. It wasn't him. He was just a convenient target, a convenient patsy, like Lee Harvey Oswald, convenient patsy. And I read this was given to me by a friend of mine, or it was his father's, but so my friend's father gave me this report, which had been put together by an Australian Army colonel, retired. And he looked at the shooting in detail. I remember the report was like, I think 50 or 60 pages. It was photocopied. I have it somewhere. I haven't been able to find it. It's a real shame. But it was a very, very detailed report. And in this report, this colonel said that the Port Arthur shooting, the efficiency with which the person was operating, right, in close quarters, because this person was shooting people in the cafe, within grappling range. And most of the people killed were killed by headshots, single or double taps. But most were killed with single shots. What this colonel said, this level of efficiency is unheard of. There's maybe 4 or 5 guys in the world, special forces and trained people, that could do this, that could actually pull this off. Because he wasn't just, whoever did this, they weren't spraying the cafe with bullets. These were targeted shots, single shots, sometimes 2 shots, that killed the person immediately. Okay? That's what happened back then. And 4 or 5 people might be able to pull that off under the circumstances, within grappling range, and having, 20 or 30 people in the room with you. And at any time, someone could grab you, right? But that didn't happen, clearly. What he also said, that the injured to kill ratio was too low. There were way too many people killed in relation to how many people were injured, right? If someone fires wildly into a crowd, the kill ratio might be, I don't know, 2 to 10, 2 to 8, 1 to 10, 1 to 5, 1 to 5, 1 to 4. So for every person killed, you injure 5 people, let's say, right? Something like that. The kill, I want to tell you the real thing. So I'm going to see if I can quickly Google it. It was too high. Kill to wounded ratio, Port Arthur. Here we go. It doesn't really give me any numbers here. Okay, here we go. He killed 35 people with a semi-automatic weapon. Killing of 35 people. Okay. He killed 20 people with his first 29 bullets. Okay? Now think about that for something like that, okay? Now, okay, mortality. During the fighting of a war, the number of people wounded is at least twice the number killed and maybe 13 times as high. Okay? So, this is really odd. Now let me see how many people were wounded. Maybe it's here. 22 miles shooting, blah, blah, blah. Open this article. Hopefully it's here. But the colonel concluded that the kill ratio was way too high. 35 people dead. Tell me the number of wounded here. Shots, precise. Yeah, here we go. This is actually an article from 2019 here, which is interesting. In footage from an Al Jazeera undercover investigation, this is Pauline Hansen floats the idea that the 1996 Port Arthur shooting, which left 35 people, was a false flag operation. Okay. The shots were precision shots. I agree. That's exactly what happened. And Martin Bryant was not a precision shooter. And it also led to the greatest, or the largest weapons amnesty in the history of the world, where hundreds of thousands of weapons were handed into the government by shooters in Australia. So legal gun ownership was severely curtailed in Australia as a consequence. Let's see if I can just find the wounded list of these. Let's see. Port Arthur wounded. Port Arthur shooting wounded. Here we go. The wonder of the internet, hey? No, doesn't want to do it. Okay. Work. Okay. Port Arthur shooting. Blah, blah, blah. Here we go. I got it. It killed 35 and injured 23. 23. The number of injured should be at least, 100. But it's not. It's 23. Interestingly enough, when the police finally cornered him in the shed that he had where he was, he fired hundreds of rounds at the police and didn't hit anything. And this was Martin Bryant at this point. He was cornered in a shed. So again, a lot of questions here, right? And the funny thing is, this is now locked away for 75 years, so we won't be able to look at it. Similar to what happened with the 9/11 information, which has been locked away for some 70 odd years as well. An IQ of 66. Eyewitnesses who knew him said he wasn't the shooter. By the time the shooting was said and done, the actual perpetrator was probably halfway around the world, on to the next job. 4 to 5 people in the world could have completed the job in the fashion it was completed, with the expertise that was clearly shown. Okay. Now I'm not saying this is anything. Fleddy, yeah, no, hey Fleddy, how are you, buddy? Thank you. Fleddy here says Port Arthur was John Wick or Mossad. I completely agree. It was like think of the Port Arthur shooting as being done by a John Wick-like character. I completely agree. Thank you, Fleddy. Okay, so I'm not saying the Charlie Kirk assassination falls in the same category. Not at all. Not at all. This is a completely different animal, right? But my point is that these false flag operations are quite common, even to the point of being maybe the first go-to solution when it comes to certain problems, right? 9/11 was a false flag all the way through. There were way too many inconsistencies, and I've been looking at this now for 26 years, 25 years, a long time, because it was so world-changing. It really was. It was a world-changing event, 9/11. Port Arthur was a huge change for Australia, massive. And it showed what could be done. It showed what could be done, with a mass shooting like that. Because Australia never had a shooting like that. We've never had a shooting like that. Fleddy, thank you so much. Cui bono. I completely agree. Cui bono. Now, the government wanted it. John Howard at the time, it was his policy or his idea to enforce much stricter gun control. Right? Because that's the first thing that happens in any authoritarian government. Now, it's usually baby steps. Sometimes it's fast, like with the Germans were very fast, the Russians were very fast, but you have a list of gun owners, and you have that list, and you make the list, and then you go and take the guns away, you might even take the gun owners away. Cui bono. The parasites benefit, Fleddy. The parasites, always the parasites, because there's a lot more of us than there is of them. A lot more of us than there is of them. And what changed? What changed? Control. We are moving into an age, for the first time in recorded history, we're moving into an age where we can conceivably control the vast majority of the population. Okay? We have the technology today to do that. Okay? And I'm just going to spitball. I'll give you like a hypothetical scenario. Bear with me. A disease rears its ugly head. Some kind of pandemic, with quite bad symptoms. It spreads like wildfire across the world, and within a week, you have hundreds of millions of people that are infected, with several hundreds of millions, of course, at risk of being infected, and maybe already millions of people dying potentially, right? That's the scenario. Okay? The World Health Organization or some other body that might precede it or whatever, or not precede it, replace it at some point in the future, comes along and says, we got a vaccine. This vaccine will, not only do we have a vaccine, we also have a cure. So there's a vaccine, the vaccine goes out, beautiful, and we can make a lot of it because we've now got the tech after SARS-CoV-2. We can make it a lot and very quickly, and there's also a cure. This is the cure. So if you are sick, we'll give you the cure, and if you're not sick, we'll give you the vaccine. Wonderful. Now, the vast majority of the planet would say, yeah, please do, please give us the cure, give us the vaccine or whatever. And with our level of nanotechnology that we have today, including biological circuitry, which we already have, we have got circuitry that could potentially be embedded in your brain, as you know, the Neuralink, I think that's what he calls it, Elon Musk is working on. But let's say they give you these injections, for argument's sake, right? This is a completely hypothetical scenario, by the way, right? It hasn't happened. I'm not saying it happened. I'm just saying it's a hypothetical scenario. And in that injection, both the cure for the disease as well as the vaccine for the disease, they infuse biological nanochips, some kind of nanobots, whatever. But these ones can now be used for tracking, data gathering, transmitting and receiving signals, etc., because, that's the tech we have today. All of a sudden, you have the tabs on everybody. Everybody. Nobody had to line up and get a chip in their hand or a chip in their forehead, like the Bible said, right? Yeah, no. Everybody got boom. It might even happen at birth. Who knows? Because the injection is given to babies at birth, right? Who knows? But my point here is, we have the tech to do this. And then once you've got the tech, once it's installed, right, who knows what you can do to that person? I mean, you can monitor the person, that's for sure. That's the passive aspect of it, which is probably the most benign aspect. And you know what? It might even be sold on that level of, we want to monitor your health, right? We're gonna monitor your vitals. So if something goes wrong, we can send an ambulance to your location. So we got geolocation. You get your state of health and all these wonderful things, and maybe these nanobots, whatever they're also they might be able to repair damaged tissue or a plug in your arteries or whatever, right? So there's always a good side to all of these things. And then so you don't have any weapons anymore, so it's really hard to fight back against people with weapons. It's stupid to bring a knife to a gunfight, as we all know. All right, so that's one thing that's trying to be accomplished. And America is really limping behind the parasite's agenda. I'm not against guns at all. Okay? Correct, Fleddy. And in fact, that's what they've done. So Fleddy here says, with that tech, you can create more Hobart shooters hearing voices in their head. You can. What you can't do is train them to the level of efficiency that this person displayed. But certainly, mind control, MKUltra, all of that is real stuff. It's real. It happened. And the only reason we really know about it is because they misfiled certain MKUltra documents as, I think, financial files, which that's the only reason they escaped the shredder. And the rest of the documentation was deliberately shredded to conceal, in my opinion, the more heinous things that they used to do in these experiments. And educational institutions in America were complicit. Educational institutions were complicit with this. we know this is a fact. This is not a conspiracy. This is not crazy talk. It happened. It's completely insane. But it happened. So you not control the population. You've taken guns away, and like I said, America is limping behind. That's why there are, in my opinion, so many school shootings. Right? Because they want to push the population over the edge. They want to push the population to a point where they say, no more guns. Take the guns away. Blah, blah, blah. It will happen at some point, I'm sure. Right? But the thing is this. Right? Gun violence like this is not natural. We had guns in the late 19th, early 20th century, right? In Australia, Dave tells me they brought them to school. It's like, little rifles, 22s, whatever. You put them on the rack, and after school you can go hunting, rabbit shooting, whatever. Okay, that's but you know why? Because we were taught. I mean, my grandfather taught me gun safety, gun clean. The first thing I had to do was clean his guns. And I never forget the smell. It's ballistol oil. You walk into a gun shop, that's the smell that you get. And to this day, it reminds me of my grandfather and puts me in a nostalgic mood, the smell of that gun oil. So I had to clean his bullets. I had to clean his revolvers. He had 3. I cleaned his carbine rifle, and I cleaned his single-barrel shotgun. These are the guns he had. And I learned to shoot on a 38 Smith & Wesson at the age of, I think, 5 or 6 or something like that. Now he gave me training ammunition, which meant it had a lot less powder in it, so it wouldn't knock me in the head. The gun, that is. Right? So now, but I think we don't do that anymore. I don't think we see what has gone away is personal responsibility. Gen X still knows it, right? We grew up taking responsibility for ourselves, going out to play until the lights came on. It was time to go home. Parents didn't really know where we were. I broke my arm when I was out with my friends. Sort of limped back home, limping, because it's what you do when your arm is broken, I guess. And I must have been 6 years old when I broke my arm, and it was summer, and my entire upper body was in a cast for 6 weeks. That wasn't fun. And we would go out and play. Now we didn't go and play with guns. Obviously, but we played with everything else. We went to the creek and we got leeches, and we collected frogs and salamanders and all kinds of things. Not terribly many snakes in Germany that are easily caught. We would collect beetles and put them into jars. What kids do, I guess, when there is no computer. There's no computer. There's no TV in the 60s and 70s. Not like today. We're just outside. And we learn to be responsible, because if you do this, you will get hurt. If you do something stupid, is it? It was a highway special, Freddy, that my grandfather had. A highway special, he called it. Anyway, it's a nice feel in your hand, though, this Smith & Wesson, right? No, exactly. Comment. So Cameron here says they went shooting and hunting when they were kids, and he never even thought about shooting anyone. It never crossed his mind. The same with me. No, I had access to my grandfather's guns. They were in a credenza, which was locked with a tiny key in a wooden credenza, as it were. Okay, not a gun safe. I had access to his gun, but it didn't occur to me, right, to go into his gun cabinet, if you want to call it that, a credenza, and take out a gun and start shooting at people. Even when I got older and got into my puberty years, like 13, 14, it didn't occur to me. It didn't occur to me. Right? And what has gone wrong? What has gone so horribly wrong that now all these young kids would have these thoughts? Of course, look, we all have dark thoughts. Of course we all do, right? But I tell you what, back then, I was physically exhausted at the end of the day from all the. I was on my bike like literally 24/7. I mean, obviously not 24/7, but I was on my bike everywhere, riding around like crazy with my buddies, going here, there, and everywhere, and just I guess doing kid things. Going to the corner store, buying some lollies, or God, I don't even know what we did, to be honest with you. I just remember that we're out the whole time. We're out out all the time, right? And there wasn't TV programming then, and not really. Certainly no internet, no computers, nothing like that. No devices. Devices. I had a pocket knife. I had a pocket knife when I was 6 or 7. A pocket knife. But I didn't think of cutting anyone. Do you know what I mean? It didn't occur to me that I would cut anyone. I look, Flatty here is saying, what went wrong? Is it the video games, the violent movies? Honestly, I don't know. I believe it's a combination of factors, and I honestly believe it is a move away from a real life education where children are roaming the world, trying to find their own way, might break a bone or two in the process, but they're learning caution, they're learning to operate in the real world. I also believe that the food we eat has a lot to do with it, right? Because I ate home-cooked food. I can probably, on two hands, I can imagine, I can count the times we went out to eat, special occasions, before the age of 10. Right, before the age of 12 even. So I do believe it's the food that we eat with all the additives and colorings and chemicals, as well as the water that we drink, as well as the and this is something that is uniquely happening to these later generations, the electronic noise or pollution that we are exposed to every day. Right? We can't see it, but it's there. I mean, obviously, all these waves, from the entire spectrum, communicating all the time, wirelessly. We can't see it. Doesn't mean it doesn't affect us. Radiation will kill you, right? Plutonium, uranium, X-rays. Too much exposure to any of these invisible things will kill you. Right? Now, what is the effect that these other radio waves or other waves, for that matter, have on us? Who knows? Right? I also believe education has a lot to answer for where we are today. I think we have moved away from teaching our children what's good, right, and proper. And I tell you what, if I had a problem with someone, they would we would have a fisticuff. Well, not fisticuff. In Germany, it was more wrestling. We didn't really throw fists. We wrestled, right? That was, I don't know if it's a German thing or not, but we wrestled on the playground. And we established dominance or not in these cases. But you do that, and then it'd be done. You have a bit of a fight, and then the fight is over, and off you go. You might not be the best of friends, but you might be the best of friends. But there was a certain level of mutual respect because you both had stepped up to the plate and were ready to defend whatever you thought you had to defend, or you go into the fight for whatever reason. So there was a level of respect that the other person would be willing to fight, and you're fighting, and so, like I said, right, it's hard to explain to someone who has never been in a fight, but there is mutual respect. Okay, I'm talking about hand to hand, not weapons. Okay, no, not weapons. But we did that. There was, and the parents wouldn't come running to the school and demanding that someone needs to be expelled or whatever. That didn't exist. I didn't tell my parents that I was in a fight in school, right? It didn't really occur to me. And I was, again, my younger self would have probably wondered what they could do for me. My parents, that is, right? So, yeah, but look, Fleddy, absolutely, I think food, and I'll tell you why I think food is a massive factor. Now, in Super Size Me, Morgan Spurlock goes to a school which is a catch-all for all the delinquent kids in that district. All the kids that got kicked out of all the other schools, all the other areas in that specific district, go there. And Morgan Spurlock looks around, and these are like regular kids, well behaved, like normal kids. And he asked the principal, what did you guys do here? Well, we took all sugary treats away, all soft drinks, so there's no candy, snack bars, nothing. And all the food that we cook is freshly cooked food, fresh food. Nothing highly processed, nothing brought in or frozen. It's cooked fresh, and that's what the kids get. They get water, they get milk, they get juice. Okay? No artificial colors, no artificial flavors. In fact, I tell my kids, don't eat anything with a number in it. Okay, don't eat anything with a number in it. And lo and behold, he didn't really have any disciplinary problems in his school, even though these were the worst of the worst kids from the district. It's in Super Size Me. Go to Morgan Spurlock did a fantastic thing when he made that documentary, and I'm not entirely sure that his death was accidental either, but because he held a mirror to our culture, big time, and he did a great job doing it. I do miss his contribution and the things that he put out. Anyway, so I think that the number of factors which we weren't exposed to as Gen Xers, right? But which, of course, younger generations were exposed to, including our children. The best we can do is I try to cook as much as I can at home. Tonight I made lentils. My kids aren't really big fans of lentils, okay? But I know what's in it, because I cooked it, okay? I know what I put in it. Lentils, right? And then whatever, spices. I put carrots in it and onion and tomato and a whole bunch of stuff, right? And then I cook a big pot, and I like it. I mean, the only processed thing I put in there is a couple of smoked sausages I get from the Polish butcher. But this is really the problem, right? All the things we're exposed to, and I think it's a deliberate thing. It's deliberate, okay? And this kind of population control was envisioned back in the late 19th century by people like Cecil Rhodes. You might know him from Rhodes scholarships, etc. But he had this idea of the white British Empire ruling the world. That was his idea. Rhodesia was named after him. Rhodes scholarships. Look at all the people that have Rhodes scholarships, and you know who's a troublemaker. But this is where we are. It is really quite disturbing for me to see this, right? I know we've covered a lot tonight. I went from Pontius to Pilate. I ran the gamut from Rome to Paris. But I think it's necessary because, again, none of this exists in a vacuum. We can't look at the assassination of Charlie Kirk outside the cultural environment in which it actually happens. Like in our time, 40, 50 years ago, this wouldn't have happened like this. Yes, of course, people always had violent tendencies, and yes, some people did kill other people. Sure, it always happened. Yes. But never to the level that it is happening now, and it's certainly never to the level it's happening in the United States. I don't know if you've noticed that, but other countries are starting to have more and more shootings, school shootings, kindergarten shootings, daycare shootings. And I think because they're adopting an American lifestyle, eating American food, eating American additives, drinking American soda, right? Because it's spreading. It wasn't like that before. It was an America-only problem for the most part. Now it's spread into Asia, into Europe. These things are happening more and more. That's right. There are a lot of Rhodes scholars. A lot of the Australian prime ministers are Rhodes scholars. Okay. Now, again, do yourself a favor. Read up on Cecil Rhodes. Look, you guys in the chat room, you probably already know who Cecil Rhodes is. But anybody out in listener land, look him up. Nice guy. Nice guy. No, not really. Just look him up. See what you think. But yeah, look, this is where we are. It is really crazy, and we can't go on like this. This is really the kicker here, right? This is the most important thing. We have to say stop. Take a beat. What's gone wrong? Not just America, the world, because it's spreading. It's spreading to the world. Stop. Problem number one: the distribution of resources. We have to fix that. We can't afford billionaires or trillionaires. We can't afford them. This society, this civilization, the world can no longer afford to have billionaires. Let's start there. Then let's teach our children right. Each child needs individual specialized education. Not just the highly gifted ones and not just the highly talented ones. Every child has the right to have a future to the best of its ability. That's the music. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back on Thursday, hopefully with Dave. This has been Plato's Cave. Don't go anywhere. Something awesome is going to come up. Donate if you can. Like, subscribe, share if you see us in a while, and be safe!
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.